Hey guys, and welcome back to our tutorial for concepting, modeling, sculpting, texturing and implementing our good friend Slug Gun here. This episode is the last one of our little series, which means we're gonna finish the gun, we're gonna texture it, we're gonna implement it in sketchfab, and I'm gonna show you how to do it in Unity as well. As always, if you haven't watched the previous episodes, go ahead and do that first, because we covered a couple of topics that are interesting and important for this episode. So as I said, we're gonna texture our model today, which means we're gonna start up Substance Painter. Substance Painter is a very useful piece of software made by Algorithmic, just as Substance Designer, which you might know as well. They differ in that Substance Painter is really for texturing the models, and Substance Designer is more for making those textures. We're gonna use pre-made textures for this one. We're gonna use some textures that I made before, but a lot of textures and a lot of masks that come with Substance Painter itself. You'll see, however, that doesn't mean it looks like other models or something, as is often the case with using standard textures. Substance Painter is set up in a way that a lot of things are procedural, so even if you're using the standard textures, you're usually creating something original and something unique. Also, the model you're using plays a big role in how the textures work. Because they're procedural, because they're using the normal map, they're using all sorts of angles, all sorts of curves in your model. They're gonna be always specific to your model. So without any more chatter from my end, let's jump in. So right from the start, we'll have to bake our textures. And that does sound really hard or really easy, depending on whether you've been an artist for a while. It used to be a very big deal, but in Substance it's actually really easy. You just go to your texture settings and press the Bake Mesh Maps button. That'll open a menu, and there you can click all your mesh maps that you want to bake. Usually normal map is everything you want. Sometimes curvature maps and occlusion maps can be fun. And any of those have their own uses depending on what you're making. So the standard settings are sufficient in most cases, and all you have to do is select your mesh, your high-res mesh we made in Zbrush, and either press bake for one material or for all materials. Usually all materials is a good thing, but you might want to bake just one material if you have like excessive amounts of materials or something. And then just let it do its job, and you should end up with something like this. I basically slowed this down so you can see what I'm doing, so that's why it's taking a bit longer. So as you can see, my normal map is both applied to my model and my UV map. Sorry for my horrible UVs, by the way. It was a matter of time, as I explained, but luckily Substance is forgiving about that. So I'm selecting materials for my materials. I used two materials on this model. One that has opacity and emission, just for the fluid in the capsules and stuff, and one that doesn't. It makes it a bit lighter and it makes it a bit more easy to detail. And they both have their own UV maps, they have their own stuff, and you can see them in the right upper corner. You can, like in 3D code or in like Zbrush, paint on your model in Substance Painter, but the most powerful way to use it is with masking. It's like dropping a material on your model and masking out the places where it should appear. You do that by dragging the material you want in your layer system, creating either a white mask, which will set the texture for everywhere, or a black mask, which will let it disappear everywhere, and paint away the details, or either paint on the details you want to have that material. Substance also comes with a couple of very interesting masks and smart materials. These materials and masks use things like normal maps, things like ambient occlusion, to generate all kinds of stuff like rust, like dripping paint, like dirt, and it's just a lot of fun to try out all kinds of masks. I highly recommend just screwing around a bit with it before deciding which ones you're gonna take. Also, you see me painting on the emission map. You can select in the bottom right corner what kind of maps you're current brush is influencing. So I can do roughness, I can do normal maps, I can do just color, I can do color and emission and normal map together. I have full control over what maps I'm currently influencing. And that feature gives you great control over how you want your materials to look and what materials you want on top of each other and which things you want to see pressing through other things, and it's just great. Also keep in mind that if you're gonna paint on your model, you can't just easily change the color of the paint or the roughness of the paint or something. But if you create a mask, you can just create the material behind the mask and it'll change the entire masked area. So it's a great way to iterate on your colors, on your materials, and to really get the entire thing right. So you just saw me applying rust to the metal, and I nearly didn't paint anything. That's because I used a smart mask for that. It's a thing that comes with substance, but you can also make it yourself and you can change it whatever you want. It's something that looks up shadowy areas in your mesh, for example ledges and holes and darker areas like that, and it just places rust in there. And the cool thing about it is it goes all automatic. You can import any mesh you want and it will just work. All you have to do is place the rust texture into the mask that you're using, and it's gonna look great. Of course, in order to get a certain look or to make it look really good, you have to tweak it, but that's what Substance is for. All sorts of little things can be tweaked about the masks and can be tweaked about your textures and anything really. So just mess around with it, see what looks right, see what doesn't look right, and try to find a look you like. Also, it can be really frustrating to have like 20 materials on something and have your computer bogged down. That's why Substance Painter, because it is procedural and because it is lossless, so it uses noises to generate stuff, it's actually no problem to change your resolution. You can do that by selecting your shader settings in the upper right corner, or you can go to Window and manually select it, and just change it from whatever you're working in, like 2K or 4K, to maybe 1K or maybe 2K if you're working 4K, just so you can work a lot quicker. And that's also a really nice thing for lower end PCs or maybe a laptop or something. You can just make your texture in 1K and just scale it up whenever you have a good computer or whenever you have some time to render. And even on higher end PCs, that can be really nice, because it's really frustrating to wait for every brush stroke you do. And Substance, good as it is a very bulky piece of software. So with enough materials it will bog down any computer. So again, just like in Zbrush, go ahead, add all the details you want. It's not gonna cost anything extra, or not a lot extra. So you might as well. And enjoy trying out all the features.
Throw your cranes up.
So now we're almost ready for exporting. If you are, just go to File in the left upper corner and press Export Textures. That'll bring you to a menu where you can choose any profile you like. Most often used engines and rendering engines are listed in there. You can just pick one of those if you like. That will give you the necessary maps for that kind of engine or rendering stuff. I will use one that I modified a bit because I need my occlusion map, my emission map and my opacity map as well. And for the rest I'm using the Unity preset, so that's fine for most things, and most engines have multiple setups ready. But you also have Unreal and V-Ray and any sort of often used engine or renderer. So you can just click that and export, and it'll give you some nice maps which you can use in your software. So I'm gonna record this piece real time, so bear with me. I already uploaded my model obviously, but I'm gonna upload it again just to show you. If you made an account at Sketchfab, you need to have an account to upload models. You can press the upload button here. That'll bring you to this menu, choose file, and then you can choose your file. You want your low res FBX file. So for me that's Gun 4. And you press continue, and then it's gonna upload. You can add a name, you can add categories. If you want this to be found by other artists or by clients probably, you want a nice name, you want a nice description, you want categories and stuff, and your discoverability is displayed here. I don't know how accurate that is, but you get the idea. So once you've done that, you'll end up with a model that doesn't have any textures, that doesn't have any environment around it, that doesn't have any good lighting. It's just a model, and it's uploaded. Then you go to the model, and you have this Manage this Model tab. You press that, and you press 3D Settings. It's gonna load your model. Mine is obviously textured already, and it's done already. But I'll show you what you can do with it. So you can pan around it, of course, just like Sketchfab always does. You have the full controls for this. But the most important thing is texturing it. You're going to the Materials tab here in the top left corner. Materials, and here you have your materials. I have two materials because I used my opacity map, as I showed you, and I use a normal or a standard setup for the metal and for the rest of the rifle, actually. So you're going to upload your textures. You do that by clicking any of those drop downs, and you press manage textures. Then you can import textures, and it's easy to upload everyone together, all of them together, and then just place them. You'll need to enable some of those. Normal map is by default turned off, I think, as is opacity and emission. You have to turn those on, and then you'll have to insert the map. This one doesn't have an emission map, I think. Oh well. And then you can do that the same with your other model or your other material. So you just put in the textures and you choose what value you want to give them. Then the fun part starts, because you can go to post-processing here in the top left again, and you can add all kinds of post-processing effects which you would have in a renderer or in a 3D environment. So you can do like screen space, ambient occlusion like this, some bloom, which is nice if you have emission maps like I do. So boring, fun. Alright, so that's Sketchfab in a nutshell. You can save your default view, which you want to show up in your thumbnail as well, by pressing this one, this camera in the top left, and you can save your settings and publish. My publish button isn't there anymore because I already published, but you can publish in the top right corner and save your settings as well. I won't, because I already did this. And then it should appear as this. Do keep in mind that your textures are gonna take some time to load. Depends on how big your textures are, of course, and how many of there are. So keep them reasonably proportioned to cut down on loading times for your clients and for your potential viewers. Alright, then we'll go over to Unity. So as you may know, this is Unity. It's a really simple game engine to use. It's very comparable in terms of importing assets and usage of those as Unreal. Cry and stuff like that, I'm not sure, and I never really used that. But importing assets in this engine is really easy. I'll show you. It's just, you go to your project folder, you press import asset, go to your gun you made, choose the FBX, not the OBJ, because materials aren't imported with OBJs. So FBX, import, and there you have it. So you can just drag it in there, and it should be there. Wow, that's tiny. Well, you should scale it up in your Maya. I'm just gonna scale it up here because I'm way too lazy. Right. So there you have the gun. It does come with the materials. So there are your materials. you see the gun diffuse and the gun diffuse opacity. So you can just in the same way import your maps. You're gonna need your Lamberts, your ambient occlusions, anything really you can just import, and you can possibly throw away with the things you don't use. So I'm usually doing that. So import. You're gonna want to do this in proper folders, of course, if you're gonna do this seriously. But for showing you guys, it's good. So there you have it. Let me see, I'll drag these in. So gun diffuse first. You might want to do that in the prefab actually, because doing it in the inspector will only do that for that object, and doing it in the prefab will change it for every object that is spawned from that prefab. Unless you have a live prefab and stuff like that. So there we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. You have to change this to white in order to make it look proper. Gun. Let me see, I have the metallic here, I think. Right. No, that's opacity. That's the metallic. Right. So there you go. The normal map. Normal map should be changed to normal map. That's the thing. It doesn't do that on itself, so you should always change those in your import settings to normal map and press apply, because otherwise it won't work. Unity is sometimes finicky like that. So you're dragging in your normal map, dragging in your occlusion map. It should be this one, yes it should. And you can do your emission map as well. You have to do this thingy. There you go. And now we're going to the next. So that's gonna be white as well. I'm gonna drag in the correct map. Metallic one, which would be this one. Right? No, that didn't need it. Right. That's the metallic map. Looks way better, right? Normal map. Doing the occlusion map as well. It's there, it's gonna look great. And your emission map. There you go. So there's your model. And it's all functional and all shiny and all great. It's just a bit too high. So you can use it in any game you like actually. It's really not that high poly. I think this one is like 2K, 3K polys. I'll add that on screen, how many polys it actually is, but it's not too bad. While it looks a lot higher. So yeah, that's what the normal map does. So that's Unity. So that's the end of our little project. I'll show you how it looks on the character. I myself learned a lot as well during this project, and I hope you did as well. This was the first tutorial series kind of thing I ever did, I think. And I actually might do some more someday. I really like doing this. So anyway, if you have any questions, any more comments, any advice for me, please let me know in the comment section below. And I'll try to get back at you as soon as possible. I want to thank the HKU for giving me this assignment, because I really liked it and I think I'm gonna do this a lot more often. And I really want to thank you for watching and for hopefully working along. And I hope your future projects are just that tiny bit more easy because of this. Also, if you haven't made anything in 3D yet or with these softwares, I highly encourage you to just try it out. You've seen how easy it is watching my videos, so there's really no reason not to. So to wrap this up, again, thanks so much for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye!